What is Linux? Linux is an operating system. In that sense, it's not unlike Microsoft Windows or Mac OS X. Linux, however, is open source. Open source does not always mean that it's free from paid licensing. If you want to use Red Hat Enterprise Linux or SUSE Linux Enterprise Server, for example, you'll have to pay. Ubuntu, however, whether you're using the desktop or server, is totally free. An operating system is simply a platform upon which you may do your work, or upon which your server may do its work. Users interact with applications, applications interact with the operating system, and the operating system lets both of them interact with the hardware. The operating system itself lets you and your applications effectively use the hardware to do what you want done. If designed well, an operating system hides many of the complexities of dealing with hardware, presenting a clean, intuitive interface for you to use. Ubuntu is a well-designed operating system. It's intuitive, complete, and easy to learn. Linux is actually a suite of programs fundamentally built on GNU Linux. GNU is the operating system with Linux as its kernel, the core or engine of the operating system. Both are designed to emulate the proprietary Unix operating system designed by AT&T Bell Labs in the 1970s. Richard Stallman started the GNU project in 1983. He wanted to design a free operating system based on Unix. The project had a kernel called GNU Hurd, but it never gained enough popularity to become fully developed. Part of the project, however, was also an open source license called the GNU General Public License, or GPL. This is an important development for Linux as it paved the way for the pioneers who made operating systems that are open to all of us. Linus Torvalds released an open source kernel under the GPL, which is now known as the Linux kernel. The open source GNU operating system now had an open source kernel to run on. The open source kernel and the open source operating system were joined together to give us a complete operating system. We'll talk more in a later lesson about the Ubuntu distribution or distro. Let's discuss Linux distributions or distros and how Ubuntu fits into the distro world. An operating system isn't of much use if it doesn't have a suite of applications you can use on it. A desktop environment and an office suite for end users is a great start. For servers, web applications like Apache and Nginx or databases like MySQL are what you need to do or display your work. Linux is packaged into distributions or distros. A site called distrowatch.com has been a go-to resource for what's going on in the distro world for some time. If you go to distrowatch.com, then click on Major Distributions in the upper right, you'll be taken to their Top 10 Distributions page. Scrolling down, we can see there are many distros available. Linux Mint, Ubuntu, Debian, Mageia, Fedora, a free open source cutting edge version of Red Hat, OpenSUSE, Arch Linux, CentOS, an unbranded version of Red Hat, PC Linux OS, Slackware Linux, and FreeBSD. BSD isn't Linux as it's not based on the Linux kernel, but it is open source and Unix-like. And if you can navigate Linux, you can do your work in BSD as well. That's just the top 10 from DistroWatch. There are literally hundreds of distros out there. That begs the question, why should you choose Ubuntu? The straight answer is you shouldn't. You shouldn't, that is, unless it's the distro that fits your needs. If you want a unique build for penetration testing networks or ethical hacking, use Kali Linux. It's a great suite of tools and utilities for scanning for and exploiting vulnerabilities on systems. If you want to dynamically have tiny servers spun up and shut down for Docker images hosting web services in the cloud, have a look at Alpine Linux. Alpine Linux is only about 4 to 5 megabytes in size. If you want a secure distro to build a firewall or similar app on, OpenBSD may be for you. Technically, BSD is not Linux, but OpenBSD is also open source, Unix-like operating system maintained specifically with security in mind. Wow, with all those options, why would Ubuntu be a fit? Ubuntu is an excellent general-purpose desktop and server operating system. It has the features you would typically want and a large packaging system called apt for advanced packaging tool you can use to install and maintain a vast array of applications. So where did Ubuntu come from? Mark Shuttleworth, who made a huge amount of money building then selling VeriSign, decided the need existed for a more user-friendly distro of Linux. He built Ubuntu on another distro called Debian. Debian was fairly mainstream, but wasn't updated or patched as frequently or regularly as the community wanted. It also wasn't easy to install. Mark Shuttleworth started his new distro under a company named Canonical Limited and named it Ubuntu. It was released in October 2004. Ubuntu means something like humanity to others, or I am what I am because of who we all are, in Zulu and Xhosa. You'll find Ubuntu documentation to be rich and user-friendly. You can find it at help.ubuntu.com. Ubuntu also has active forums where you can search for solutions. You can also ask for help with a specific question you may have. It's at ubuntuforums.org. If you're not familiar with the term RTFM, it stands for Read the Effing Manual. It's an attitude you're much more likely to encounter in other forums than on Ubuntu's forum. That said, it's always best to search for an answer yourself than to ask a question right away without even trying. You'll be learning about the help systems available to you in Ubuntu and all Linux distros in upcoming lessons. Ubuntu has a regular patch and release cycle. The latest stable release that provides long-term support as I write this is version 20.04. For a long-term support or LTS version, look for an even-numbered major release, 20.04 in this example. The next LTS release will be version 22.04, and it will be available sometime in April of 2022. Although Ubuntu makes new releases every 6 months, long-term supported releases are only every other year. LTS releases are supported for 5 years, while all other releases are only supported for 9 months. My recommendation is to always use the LTS releases. Please download the attached file for this lesson, which contains a transcript of the lesson and links for more info. A quick word on ratings. Although I'm a Udemy instructor, like you, I'm also a student. I take courses here on a broad range of topics that interest me. Also, like you, I look closely at ratings and what people have said about a course when deciding whether to spend my valuable time and money on it. You'll be asked very early in the course to leave a rating by Udemy, usually within the first 3 to 5 lessons. You likely won't have any idea whether the course is good for you or not by that point in time. Please decline at that time and say you'll leave a rating later. After you've taken a sufficient number of lessons to form an opinion, please leave a review when prompted, or click Go to Dashboard in the upper right of a lesson and click on Reviews in the dashboard. When leaving a review, please select the number of stars you feel the course deserves and choose aspects of the course that led you to want to leave that rating. It is also helpful to say what you did or did not like about the course. Always feel free to reach out to me in the course Q&A or through Udemy's messaging system to ask for improvements, additions, or changes that will make this a 5-star course for you. That's my goal in every course. Thanks for your time and patience, and I'll see you in the next lesson.